Let's go with Angelisa.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So I'm standing in front of my house and I look up in the western sky and see a massive white trapezoid shaped object. I turn and look in the northern sky and I see an even bigger battleship like object in the sky. I run into the house to tell my husband, and while I'm running, the battleship fires two missiles. It hits a tower on the ground, and the TV goes black. I turn and lock the door, and then thought, well, that was dumb. But I'm observing through a window. In real life, there's not really a window there. The battleship starts firing balls of smoke straight up, but the smoke doesn't dissipate. The balls start to connect to each other, and they spread up and out like a net. And I wonder if it is poisoning the air. And the word that came to me was smoke screen. And that's it.
That's an interesting dream. You know, when you said the trapezoid, it reminds me of like the battle cruiser on Star Wars. Not exactly a trapezoid, but kind of trapezoid-ish or trapezoid-esque, if that's the word. But I really like this dream. I like this dream a lot. So there's two big things that you're observing in the heavenlies. One is the trapezoid-shaped object, which you don't really know what it is. And the other one you've identified as being like a battleship.
Yeah.
So you know that it's obviously intent and purpose is war. It's there for a reason. I also think it's interesting that you look up in the northern sky and you see something that's even bigger. So when you say the northern sky, I think of true north. And even though we don't have a way of knowing this from the context of the dream, I feel like the battleship is something that's good, something that's true, something that's coming from a good place or a true place or a place of truth. You said it was 4 to 5 times bigger. The battleship was. Is that 4 to 5 times bigger than the trapezoid?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like what we're observing is an actual glimpse into spiritual warfare. So the trapezoid is unknown. Like we don't really get to see what that is, what that looks like. The battleship, though, is clear. You know right away looking at it, this is a battleship. The number 4 can represent, and I believe in this case it does represent the nations, literally representing like the 4 corners of the earth. 5, of course, can represent a lot of times grace. And so what I feel like this dream is about is it's about the truth or the true north. In the north, you see something that's 4 to 5 times greater than this unknown object that you don't know anything about. You don't know its intentions. You're not sure what it's doing there. And this other piece, this battleship, is obviously there for war. But I think it's also interesting that it's not firing on the trapezoid.
I never saw them interact.
Right. So they're just like two opposing forces, or we don't know that they're opposing because they're not firing on one another, but the battleship is firing 2 missiles at a tower on the ground and the TV goes black.
Yes.
So the tower on the ground to me represents the idea of like so many people came against the technology of 5G. And I'm not here to try to figure out what is or is not real in that whole argument, but it represents the airways of man. It represents the systems, the networks, the Wi-Fi, the news, and I think of, one of the titles of the enemy is the Prince of the Power of the Air.
Yes.
And I feel like, it's the power of the air that we've given him, the airways that we've created, right? And so this battleship from the true north position is attacking that tower with 2 missiles and taking it out. And what's really interesting is when that happens, the TV goes black, which again just further represents and solidifies the idea of the mainstream media, the programming that's done on news. If you're familiar with Operation or Project Mockingbird,
yes.
It's just interesting that the governments, certain governments of the world and certain governmental systems have chosen to work with mainstream media in particular to put forth lies, programming, falsehoods. If this is the first time, if you're listening in and this is the first time you've heard of that, man, you got a lot of research to do. But there's a lot of people that are already aware of this. We've known this for years. We've been the enemy that's trying to deceive people. Sorry, I blacked out for a minute there.
I hear you now.
There's a great awakening that's happening in the earth right now today. And again, that's one of the things that I believe the number 4 to 5 times bigger has to do with. So I think it's a fascinating dream that God is giving you a glimpse into what is happening on the spiritual side. Now, I think there's a little more to this. You run inside. So you observe this from being outside. You run inside. 2 missiles to the tower on the ground. The TV goes the TV goes black.
Right.
You lock the door, but you observe through the window. And this isn't a window that's actually there. There's suddenly a window where there is no window in your actual house that you can begin to see through.
Right.
This represents the seer anointing and the prophetic. It represents, again, seeing into the spiritual realm, something that you couldn't see before, that's either a level of foretelling or forthtelling, and it's letting you know what's going on and that you're actually looking into the spiritual realm. So it confirms that idea that we had right at the beginning of the dream, that what we're seeing is spiritual. It's also interesting that you lock the door. I hear the song. It's an old African song. Friends of mine that were missionaries in Africa always used to sing the song, and we used to sing it as kids. It was "Shut the door, keep out the devil." You know, shut the do, keep out the devil. You know, it was just a fun little lively song that we would sing. But it's interesting that you lock the door but observe through the window. So the idea of locking the door is wanting to feel secure in the midst of the conflict that's happening, wanting to be, and I see it again as a prophet, like being shut up in a cave. Like, I'm going to pull back, I'm going to isolate, because what you're seeing is God is giving you a window literally into the spirit realm, and you're seeing what's happening. Now, what's also interesting is the battleship then fires balls of smoke straight up, but it doesn't dissipate, right? The balls are connected to each other and spread out like a net, and you wonder if it's poisoning the air. So it's interesting that this battleship is providing, literally, it first of all, it takes down a tower, and then it provides a net or a smoke screen. It's interesting that you use the word net because, of course, when I think of net, I think of Jesus's words to Peter, "Cast your net on the other side," which was when he called the first apostle. And so those words resonate through all of our belief and our faith in Christianity. But the net is the idea of being able to catch something. And the idea of having a net that's a smoke screen means that even though you have the ability in this instance to see into the spiritual realm, there are things that are about to happen that even people with that spiritual sight may not see. They're going to be hidden from a lot. Now, you know, the scripture says that God doesn't do anything without first telling his prophet. So I think there's going to be a level that's available in the seer realms and in the prophetic. But I think there's going to be a lot of covert moves that are going to happen and that are even happening now. Either now or in the very near future. And I say the near future because of the idea of looking through the window. It's the idea of the looking glass, right? Yeah. Future tense. So I believe what God is doing is he's showing you a level of the battle that's going to happen and what's about to take place. And so what's about to take place is the media of men and the networks of men are about to get taken down. And then the second thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a net that's going to provide a level of cover, but also a net. A net is used, it's used to capture things, right? Whether it's to capture a drag net is used to capture a criminal, or a net that's used to capture fish, or that's used to capture, the harvest of souls. I think it's interesting that there's some things that are happening that's in particular are going to be kind of covert or undercover that the battleship itself is providing cover for. So it shows a coordinated effort. I was in the Navy, right? So a lot of times if you have a battleship, like in World War II, the battleships would smash the heck out of the fortifications before they would send in the amphibious landing craft, and the Marines would come in and enter. So it's the idea of taking down the systems and the networks, the principalities of sorts that are sent out to lie and to deceive before angels come down and begin to do work, or before and there's a precedence for angelic activity, by the way, being announced in dreams. We think of the second dream of the Bible, which is Jacob's dream at Bethel. The idea of seeing angels coming up and down the ladder at that place, that city that was named Luz, and then he changed the name to Bethel because he saw that God was there and God was moving. So I see that this is another dream like that. It's not that it's showing angelic activity per se, but it's showing a principality, strongholds. It's showing a force of truth that's coming to do battle against the forces of lies and propaganda and the systems of men. And then it's going to provide both a net and a smokescreen for covert operations that are about to happen.
Awesome.
And so I think the actionable intelligence for you is to keep seeing. Continue to look through the window. Continue to ask questions of God. What does this mean? What do I do? Continue to write your dreams down. Send them to us, especially if you're having dreams like this, dreams that are occurring on a national or a global level. This is the kind of stuff that my team and I take very seriously, and we look at and we put intelligence reports together for people that may need to see some of this stuff. And so the actionable intelligence for you is God has given you a gift, and the gift is that window. He's allowed you to see, but he's also allowed you to be locked in and protected in a place, but you can see the effects of what's happening. You see that the TV goes black, but you're protected inside and you're locked in, even though locking the door of your house isn't going to protect you from missiles from the battleship.
Right.
But you're realizing that they're not coming after you. They're coming after the evil forces of men in the world. And I think it's a great dream.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I love it.
Thank you.